People are getting AI girlfriends. People are developing all sorts of attachments with these characters. The thing about chatbots is that they've been touted as a design format for a very long time. So, since I was a young design student, maybe 19, I've heard a lot of people talking about how chatbots are going to be the next big thing. So, at the time, I picked up some titles on character design, narrative, and conversation so that I could stay ahead of the curve. But I didn't consider what the potential dangers of chatbots could be, and neither did anyone else. Chatbots were thought to be this great ingenious design format that would obviously intuitively make people's lives easier because you could just talk to someone, which, first of all, I'm not a particularly extroverted person. I'm not always a fan of talking to people, so I think that might make shine a bit of light on why not everybody resonates with the format of the chatbot. I do think it's something to do with your personality, but that's a side note. Like a lot of grand technological developments, the chatbots came with a slew of unintended consequences, largely resulting from not questioning the basic assumptions that come with the format. If the right people had asked the right questions at the right time, we might not have found ourselves here. Chatbots have created another Frankenstein's monster, where an insular tech design culture assumes what people want, creates the thing without questioning what the thing could be, largely for their own egos. Then it turns into something that they claim they could never have anticipated, that could most definitely have been anticipated if you spent 5 minutes thinking about it. And you have to ask yourself, how is it that design culture keeps doing this? Why do we not ask questions about, so this social media thing? Could this actually be bad? This infinite scrolling thing, what could this result in? What could this mean for the media landscape? And they're really obvious questions, but we never ask them. Well, I ask them because I'm contrary and I always argue with people, but um, most people don't ask them. That might have prevented this when we're discussing the negative effects of a chatbot could be, firstly, what negative social consequences could arise from creating a design that's explicitly intended to make the user think they're talking to a character? Have we consulted a single mental health professional in this? How might this interact with vulnerable populations, such as teenagers with growing minds, who we already know are reacting worse to social media compared to the general population? And how might that also interact with people with pre-existing mental health issues so that we avoid a lawsuit of like $10 million or however much it is that they're suing ChatGPT for now? Stripping back to first principles, how else might we display the information a chatbot's meant to display? Are there other ways of presenting this? Do we have to totally bin this whole idea? That's like design 101, right? You're meant to question all your assumptions. And this cycle is meant to enable you to strip back to first principles and ask those questions, but is very rarely enabled in big tech companies in the way that it's really actually meant to be implemented. And leading on from that, do plain text conversational style inputs actually improve understanding and engagement? Or do these benefits potentially only apply in specific use cases? A lot of technology, when it first is released, there's this big boom. This is quite niche, but I was in a charity shop in Millport, which is where basically Ballamore, if you've watched Ballamore, that's Millport. Anyway, and I was in a charity shop in there this past August, and there was this handbook on microwave recipes and the things you could make in a microwave. So when microwaves were first introduced, these things were all the rage, and everyone was like, "You can cook everything in a microwave." And my dad was telling me about how that's what his mum used to do. She'd cook like she'd got microwave daft. And everybody did it. Everyone just went on a microwave craze and started cooking everything in their microwaves. Um, and in reflection, that seems silly. But what we're seeing with chatbots is the same thing. Designers assuming that these plain text inputs are universal and always helpful, which isn't the case. There's not always, you don't need to cook everything in a microwave. You don't need to make spaghetti bolognese in a microwave. You don't need a chatbot for everything. And it's not always helpful in every use case to make it in the microwave or stick a chatbot in something where there doesn't need to be a chatbot. In reflection, these questions seem obvious, but like I said, no one was asking them at the time 5 years ago when everyone was talking about how chatbots are going to be amazing. And I do tend to repeat myself when it comes to my favorite pet theories about the internet, but the AI Centrists Manifesto is a really brilliant research paper that details what the author describes as misattribution of consciousness. The chat interface is inherently anthropomorphized. It represents human intelligence and it does this very well. It displays behaviors that we might attribute to a conscious being without actually being conscious. A lot of us are able to grasp this without issue, but there's always edge cases with every design. As with every design, when your external circumstances encourage you to believe that a chatbot is conscious, whether that's your material conditions or a mental health issue or a combination of the both, the behavior that the chatbot displays in its anthropomorphized nature encourage you to believe this. And this has a secondary effect because 30% of people don't trust AI companies, but only 15% of people don't trust chatbots. So the reason that this misattribution of consciousness exists is because there's a market incentive for it to exist. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists because it allows companies to distance themselves from the effects of their chatbots because we are anthropomorphizing them. But the questions that the author posits in this paper are really interesting design questions that I've been nibbling on for the past couple of months. Question one: what features of AI systems succeed in breaking the intuitive inference to the presence of a human like conscious being? Question two: to what extent is it appropriate to nudge the user away from false beliefs about the system they're interacting with? And question three: what's the role of governments in enforcing these nudges? Design interventions that attempt to address these challenges often follow principles of transparency, which has led to the development of the field of study called explainable AI. Think of the ubiquitous AI can make mistakes banners that are present in almost every chatbot. Other interventions in the field of explainable AI aim to reveal the chatbot's decision making, often through simplified visualizations of its internal logic. The idea behind this being that it helps users understand the chatbot's not conscious in the way themselves are. This might be a UI element that shows the AI's current role or context, such as the data it's using, the chat history it's pulling from, and other key information. Governor patterns describe displaying AI generated content at partial opacity until the user verifies it, which reinforces the AI's provisional status and the need for human correction and verification. But explainable AI still typically relies on the chat interface, which comes with the same limitations. Interestingly, explainable AI interventions have been shown to be more beneficial for users with higher education, income, and other demographic privileges. But what you can see from this is that explainable AI doesn't get to the core problem of the chatbot interface because it doesn't reach the edge cases where problems occur because it's more going to lend itself to people who are already not inclined to believe that a chatbot is conscious. The solutions interrupt the user's flow just enough to remind them they're talking to a machine, but it doesn't fundamentally change the interaction paradigm that caused the need for that in the first place. Other solutions shift the interaction from a turn based conversation to a more tool like collaborative approach. This frames AI not as a friend that you talk to, but as a tool that you use. Asynchronous co creation describes an interaction where a human and an AI take turns in a structured way, like filling out a document together or ambient AI describes when the AI is a silent partner that only acts when it's prompted by a specific non conversational trigger. An example might include highlighting text in a document to get a summary. This genre of solution is generally appealing to my sensibilities, but in an age ruled by the spectacle, can a tool like hidden form of AI really replace the dominant chat interface? The question of breaking the chat metaphor goes beyond UX questions about what's most effective towards the nature of communication in the algorithmic age. The chatbot is popular precisely because it easily appeals to the sensationalist, rage bait fueled nature of online communication. Tool based AI is admirable and far more useful, but can it break through the noise? I don't think so. The goal of all these designs is to manage the user's interaction with a complex system by hiding its true nature. Every solution tries to make the alien, statistical, and distributed nature of an LLM legible within a structured, human-centric framework of understanding. What if it doesn't need to be legible in that way? Some more philosophically minded answers to the questions posited in an AI centrist manifesto take this view and claim that the illegibility of AI technology isn't something to fear. The anthropomorphizing is the danger, and it's part of a pattern of dualistic thinking, human superiority, and hierarchical systems that should have no place in the modern world. Non dual frameworks offer alternatives to the Western consciousness as individual paradigm and put forward a view of the next area of AI that goes deeper than mere user protection. The Anthology and Atlas of Anomalous AI charts what it calls anomalous ideas of artificial intelligence, that point towards different kinds of futures. Many of the ideas explored in this book address the design questions that I've discussed earlier in their own ways. One of these solutions claims that we'd be better off thinking of human interactions with other forms of intelligence, whether artificial or animal, as a field of grass rather than trees with humanity sat atop it. The metaphorical systems that we use to understand technology, such as AI, is closely linked to a human centric view of the world. The metaphor of the tree as a symbol of life's hierarchy goes as far back as the Genesis myth, which is thought to be a similar version of a similar which is thought to be a version of a similar Assyrian myth that uses a tree to reflect a similar hierarchy. This is where the traditional Christian notion of dominion over nature comes. And it's this dominion over nature that does nothing but wreak havoc on the world. Understanding AI as a potentially new form of intelligence within that paradigm that's caused our environment so much damage isn't going to lead to positive outcomes, no matter how many guardrails we corral our governments into putting in place. These measures, many scholars in the Atlas argue, won't go far enough. And to truly live in a world with AI, we have to rethink our notion of human supremacy and our right to control the forms of intelligence that we perceive as lesser. But this idea of human interaction with AI is more connected and complex, is not confined to philosophical, artistic, decolonization focused circles. It's also found in very capitalist, commerce focused thinking on the nature of artificial general intelligence and its role in the workforce. Sub AGI refers to models that are highly capable in specific domains but cannot achieve human like intelligence. A growing idea in the field of AI is to have a system of these sub AGI models that work together. A lot of advocates of this approach argue that this will create AGI by working together to create an intelligence that surpasses our own. Mainstream notions of AI, AGI, treat it as if it were an isolated singular system, but that's not how ideas, labor, or humans work. If AI stays this small and specialized, its interactions with humans and other agents will increase over time. What might be called patchwork AGI. The patchwork AGI hypothesis resembles a slightly twisted version of the decolonized notions of intelligence that I've discussed earlier. And this same idea that we should work with different forms of intelligence leads to a form of capitalism in which we, the human laborers, interact with AI agents as our equals. So, whilst the idea of decolonizing our notions of intelligence is essential, these ideas alone don't demonstrate a path towards an AI future that's not weaponized by the economic elite against the workforce. Many of the same problems would persist in this world. Developing a population wide understanding of AI as not having human like consciousness through clever design features is important for humanity's future. This alone will not prevent a world where AI poses real risks to our communities and well being. So, in short, can we use design features and new frameworks of understanding to reduce the harms caused by the chatbot paradigm? Yes. Will this create a technological future that genuinely cares for people and promotes equality and well being? Not necessarily. We can break the chat metaphor, and this will improve well being and likely decrease incidents of self harm brought on by AI. We can do this by thinking of AI as a tool and allowing its design to cleverly reflect its inner workings and redeveloping the notion of supreme human intelligence. An AI tool that reflects this might follow a couple key principles. Designed for research, not answers. The interface should be a tool for posing questions to a non human oracle, not chatting with a synthetic friend. It should encourage ritual, structured inquiry, and the interpretation of ambiguous signs. Design an interface that shows the user there's no single mind, but a multiplicity of possible paths, connections, and statistical weights. Instead of hiding the computational process, the interface should expose it. Show the user the prompt transformations, the attention layers, the probabilities. As the patchwork AGI hypothesis aptly points out, understanding AI agents as isolated developments is unhelpful. They'll have to interact with other agents, humans, and exist within a system of intelligence. Technology today is rarely deliberated and developed as part of a system and is usually thought of as siloed, partly because of increasing individualism and partly because of market incentives. Designing an AI interface that allows humans to interact with the agent in a manner that supports understanding of importance. But these interfaces also need to involve a process through which we reflect on the place of these ideologies of these where we reflect on these agents within a system. I just intended to write a clever essay that brought together the different ideas about chatbot alternatives that I'd been swimming around my head for months, but in writing it, I found a niggling sense of doubt. I realized that the notion of working with AI and deconstructing human supremacy doesn't tackle all the problems that we have with AI. And despite the pretty cover and my intellectual crushes having excellently phrased ideas about how we can exist in communion with one another, I just didn't think that this would solve all our problems. AI exists within the social system we exist in. Deconstructing our notions of human dominion over nature with new helpful analogies to trees and mushrooms just won't fix all our problems. It might decrease the problems caused by misattribution of consciousness, and it might lead to much more interesting ideas and innovation that goes beyond the same dull nonsense that circles around big tech. But the cat is out the bag with the human relationship to AI. And rethinking about how this could work is about more than interfaces, methodologies, or communications.